So welcome to the node.js package maintenance team meeting for October 12th, 2021. We will follow the agenda that was outlined in the issue within the repo, which was issue number 485. Before we get started, does anybody have any announcements they'd like to share? Okay, if not, we might as well start on to the first issue, which was the status update and next steps for PKJS Create. That one, I'm just trying to take a look. I know we have, moved all the stuff we needed to into the repo. And I'm just scrolling down to the bottom. No, John had taken a look at it at some point, but I don't think we've made any further progress unless somebody else has any updates.
No updates since I haven't been able to join. I haven't been able to also follow up on it. I know my name was kind of attached to this in the initial, and then talked to Wes and things went crazy from there. And then John came and I haven't had a chance to sync up with John either. So okay. I'll probably try to do that again now that I'm got a little bit more free time again. A little bit.
Sounds great. If you have a bit more cycles, that would be perfect.
Yeah.
Quick notes. The next one, which is the suggested list of modules to help get support info in. I know, Owen, you'd made some comments after the last meeting, and I just sort of clarified we could close it out, or we could, and then try and open some more specific issues. I'm really happy either way. Like, it probably needs to be usefully on the agenda. It probably needs a few more, like some more specific thoughts. So I'd be happy to close this and then come up with some other things. But I'm also happy to kind of leave it on as a reminder. So I don't mind.
I think if it works for yourself in terms of, reminding you, I think so is my understanding correct that it's mostly kind of there as a reminder from a socialization perspective, like just, okay. That's pretty much why the next issue is on the agenda. So I think it's fine.
Okay, sure. So we'll leave that there. It's kind of like one that I'd really like to spend some more cycles thinking about but I just haven't. So again, it sounds like we're happy to just leave it for now. But if it ever gets to be a problem, we can change our mind. So the next one is the draft documentation number 373. I think that one's there as a reminder that we should be moving our issues from draft to promote those, right?
Pretty much. There's like there's maybe only 3 or 4 of them left now. But yeah, it's just kind of like a top level checklist and kind of same thing, just a single place to kind of share that general effort. One action item I'd hoped to achieve, and I'm still thinking I should be able to do it this week, was see if it's an opportunity to share as part of Hacktoberfest. They don't really require it's mostly just administrative stuff, so I thought to maybe try and say, hey, if anybody's looking for a way to help out in the Node.js package maintenance project, there's a couple kind of some low-hanging fruit. Work your way towards I guess a t-shirt or planting a tree.
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah. So
I guess the other thing we could think of is, could we just move them all in one PR?
Someone could certainly do that.
I guess it's like we want to review just to make sure that they are complete, but if they are, then I think they don't necessarily need a separate PR.
Yeah, I mean, if someone someone submitted a PR with the last 3 or 4 all done at once, but sometimes it's a little easier to divide and conquer. So just if someone's got the free time, then I don't think it, like you said, I don't think anybody's gonna deny the PR, you know.
I was just thinking,
So.
like, if we finish early, I might just do that.
Oh yeah, that's yeah. I think I think part of the only reason to break them up was that, at least for myself and maybe others, we didn't really know the state of them. So it wasn't necessarily just a simple lift
Right,
and
okay.
shift. We did want to, it was an opportunity to kind of take a quick editorial review and be like, actually, this should stay that way, But if it
Right.
was good enough, then there probably wasn't any reason to not promote it. So that could probably take someone like you 5 minutes to be like, yeah, good enough, great, move it, good. And if any of them need more time, just do 2 out of the 3 and leave the third one for someone else, So however you want to slice and
if they're
dice
not
it.
ready, then you're right. So, okay.
Yeah, and then we have the breadcrumbs to, track that at the same time. So, yep.
Sounds good. Okay, now that's the end of the agenda. However, there was one where I did want to ask the question. So what was this? There is an issue here. Package. I think it's this one, number 462, community maintenance of action setup node. I guess the question there is, would we as a community want to take that over? I know, Dominicus, you'd been actually looking at it, and we're hoping to get some changes in. If we actually just got that moved directly to the node repo, would that make sense? Do we think that's the right thing to happen?
Yeah, so I think it would be a good thing for node community as long as we have the capacity to take that on. Judging by the number of issues, the new issues that are getting created, the pull requests in that repo, it's not that active. There are some long-standing issues that nobody is looking into, which is it's hard to understand whether it is a capacity planning issue or whether there are some architectural decisions to explicitly not implement certain things. I know there's opinions on things like whether it should support taking an NPM version as a parameter. So it would be interesting to understand that. But otherwise, it's not a very high volume repo, but we'd still need to have a team of people looking into it because it is very, very central to GitHub Actions, generally speaking, right? Everything, all the examples, everything that's node related, it depends on that, which means that any change in that repository can have a very high knock-on impact on both the users of these actions, but also on GitHub themselves. So there definitely would be a need for some collaboration, but I am very much rooting for getting that involvement and getting that community feedback into that repo, because it's been not as active as I would have personally liked to see that. I know that some longstanding issues have been resolved recently, such as support for keywords, but then there's other issues that are not necessarily moving, that are coming from the community, right? So it's hard to tell what's the actual situation. So ideally, I would love to see this under the Node Foundation umbrella. And I'm sure that there's people who would be interested in contributing, but I don't know how to find them and reach out and how to.
Yeah, I guess that would
that
be the question. Like I think my understanding is that like one of the versions, one for some other runtime, was moved into that runtime scope, so it's not impossible.
Interesting.
The question would be, from our perspective, if we got the question, do you want to take this on? Would we just say yes, move it over, or like you said, do we need to try and see if we can find the volunteers to maintain it?
Yeah, I would definitely would love to be involved in maintaining that repository, but we probably need more people on that, and we need a sort of understanding from whoever is responsible on GitHub side on how do we approach, their needs.
Right.
Because I mean, and then this does get back to the discussion of who has paid time to do that. Because not everybody does, and certain aspects of it are a commercial tool that is being maintained. So there's a bit of, there's some ethical concerns there as well, right? So, but if we can assemble more people that would like to be involved, then I would say that it would be very, very, very good for the community if this had more community involvement, and that community involvement got actually accepted and fed back into the repository.
Right. Okay. So it sounds like, yeah, you'd be in favor of, since you opened this issue, and it's not surprising, but we need to figure out if and more. What I'll do is, I did have a conversation with somebody, so I'll try and send up a meeting between the three of us and see if we could figure out like next steps on that front, if it makes sense. Or
I mean, I too would be happy to help maintain that project, because yes, I agree that a lot of folks are heavily invested in moving to like their GitHub actions. I know, and enterprise wide, our company, we're trying to make that initiative of moving into the GitHub Enterprise Cloud, and utilizing actions as more of the stable CI/CD framework, or for a lot of those things. So having it moved into the Node.js umbrella does make a lot of sense in my mind as well. But I agree with Dominicus. There's a lot of questions in terms of, is there a paid resource on it? And being that we, GitHub is the original owner of that, like where, what lines does that come into? So I agree, there's some definite questions need to be clarified and clear. But as far as helping maintain it, happy to help out. Been diving into GitHub Actions a lot lately, so and in terms of efforts on our side, so it's been kind of fun doing it. So happy to help.
okay, so I'll include you as well in discussions, and then we can sort of go from there.
Excellent.
Sounds good. Okay.
To have more meetings 101.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well, yeah. Hopefully, it won't take too long, but we'll see if we can, have the discussion, see if there is an option or not. Because I know we reached out to some people and everything, and I think it just needs closing the loop now. So. Okay, so that's what we had for. Go ahead.
It might be, if Jordan is up for that meeting, maybe we should involve him in discussions, because I know he has opinions there, and maybe some influence there.
I will include him as well. Okay. That's all we had on the agenda for this week. Anything else we should talk about before we close out?
I did have I didn't add the label because it's in another repo, and I forgot that actually I could be doing that, but I did add a small issue there. I have a new repository, PKG.js action. I have an issue there for the MVP, and I have a pull request there. And basically what that repository does is it wraps setup node and creates a node matrix based on the keywords. So similar to what we did with Travis a while back. Basically last week, was it last week? Yeah, it was only last week, I think, that GitHub came out with shareable workflows. So there's one more primitive that can be used for constructing things in GitHub Actions, which allows even better code reuse, which means that it allows you can have a generated matrix, which can be used in a much simpler way. I can maybe share my screen. Let me just see. And do I need to hide anything on my screen? Well, I wasn't planning on secrets.
Yeah.
Desktop one. Let's see. Oh no, I don't have this enabled for this Zoom on this laptop. Okay, maybe somebody else can open up the pkg.js/action and share that.
Just number one or something
Yeah,
else?
yeah. I have a link in the issue for the current meeting.
Yep, I'm just going there. So the first pull request or MVP.
Yeah.
Share screen. This one.
Correct. Yes. So I do maybe open up the README changes in there. I think that
Okay.
might just be the best option.
Okay, because there's lots of changes. Yeah. Oops. Okay, so there we go. And then view this as maybe as a file. Okay.
Yeah. So there's the usage. Basically, if you define your engines, this action will read the minimum version from the engines, and then it will construct a matrix based on the upgrade policy. And if you look at the CI YAML example in the step 2 there, that's basically what you need to include, and you get a full node matrix, including it will basically generate a matrix for all the LTS versions, starting with minimum 10. It will npm install and it will run npm test. That's the very basic thing that it does right now. And this is basically, that's the experiment, and that's the suggestion to move forward. I'd like to get some feedback on it.
I'll give it a review a little bit later today.
I'd appreciate
it looks
that.
interesting.
Yes.
Yeah. The one concern I have though
yeah.
about the engines though, I'm not sure if this was seen or known, but I was in the NPM RFC meeting. I don't know if it really pertains to us much in terms of Node, but it looks like NPM might be moving away from dealing with anything with engines. I know Jordan was there in that meeting, I think it was last week.
Yeah.
In NPM 8, I can't remember off the top of my head. If I find the docs, I can send it to you, Demetrius.
Yes, please.
Because it was in, he definitely, Dr. Mark did, and there was something talking about engines. I mean, I would love it to handle this way, because that just makes it, more flexible. You don't have to really hard list your matrix or anything like that. So this is definitely a more flexible way of going about it.
Yeah, no, I thought it was the opposite. I thought that NPM 8 will start actually respecting engines for
okay.
itself.
I could have sworn they weren't,
but only for
respect
itself.
the engines. Yeah. Okay,
It
I'll
comes
double check
flip-flopping.
before I clarify that in the future.
Yeah, please update that on any of the issues there in the repo. And
I think
it's definitely useful.
Dominic, because I think here I'll link to the issue.
Oh, perfect. That was it.
Yeah.
So he was right and I had it backwards?
I think part of the issue was that people upgrading from upgrading NPM version would allow them to update to NPM 7 even if they were on like NPM 10. So they'd upgrade NPM, go to like NPM install, and then everything would just break. And so it sounds like maybe, I'm assuming they'll use engines, but this way, if you went to NPM install NPM 6 and you're on node 10 or NPM 8, technically it'll be like, hey, no, my minimum version is 12 or whatever, and you'd get that way up front.
Yeah, but
so
even then it's sort of orthogonal to any of the problems, because it doesn't, it's still a field that people use, and it's a useful field to communicate what you support. Whether you break or don't break during the install is kind of not the whole point. The point is that in your package JSON, you communicate which versions you support. So that's metadata, and that's useful metadata. In Travis, when I did the same thing for the Travis includes, we have to define the version in the config itself, because we have no way of reading the package JSON. But because we can read the package JSON in the action, we don't need to duplicate that information. So maybe there's an option, like maybe it should be optional, and there should be another parameter which allows you to override that or something like that. But that's maybe a bit after the MVP. And I think I'll try to open up some issues in Node.js organization to see if people are willing to try it out. And ideally we'd get some feedback before Node 16 comes out. which means that we could potentially recommend that people start using this to automatically upgrade their test matrices while they're at it, right? Just opt into the automatic update behavior. So that was the intent there. And yeah, I'll appreciate any reviews there.
For the PR, is it possible to actually use it while it's in a PR state, or is it more
No.
like, okay,
No.
I didn't think
It's-
so. So it's more for the like the API and the intent, and then when you merge it, and publish it, then we'll be able to try.
Wish we could do that.
You can. I can give you instructions on how to test it. But basically, you can't use the PR directly. You will need to fork, and you will need to update some paths, because in the include that I have there, it has to reference a repository, and that repository is itself, which is not merged yet. So you need to replace the repository. You need to fork and replace the repository, or you need to reference a commit on my personal repository. So.
Okay,
there's ways around.
So in that YAML file where you point to the GitHub repo URL, you just gotta change that.
Yeah, there's several places where it does that, but basically, if you
are there any testing steps in the pull request, or do we want to just wait till you merge anyway?
I have a link to which basically points to the runs on my personal repo.
Okay.
Until I replaced the name of the repository when it stopped working, obviously after that, but it was working at that point.
Cool.
But yeah, you can fork it, find replace pkg.js action with your repository, and then you will be able to test it.
I see. Interesting. All right, good to know.
Yeah, that's something I'd like to fix very, very soon, because working with forks will be very, very hard otherwise. It's not a trivial thing.
Okay, any other things we should discuss before we close out? If not, thanks for everybody's time, and we'll see you in GitHub and next time.
Thanks,
Bye.
Al.
Good one.
Bye.